Nothing muted. Okay, well, it is Wednesday, September 13th, shortly after 12 o'clock, and I will call the City of Lacey Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meeting to order. Second item on our agenda is roll call. So I'll start. My name is Malcolm Miller, Deputy Mayor, City of Lacey.
Andrew Shen, Working Tenant Suites, North Lacey.
Chad Carpenter, Washington Center for the Performing Arts.
And then we have several staff members with us today.
Rick Walk, City Manager for City of Lacey.
Katie Siglin, Management Analyst for the City Manager's Office.
Shannon Kelly Fong, Assistant City Manager.
And we also have Troy Wu joining us today, City Finance Director. Next on our agenda is approval of agenda for previous meetings and minutes and consent items. Can I get a motion?
Make the motion.
Motion.
I'll second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda from our previous meeting minutes and our consent items. Is there any discussion about our previous minutes and consent items? No, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is under public comment. And since there's nobody here but staff and committee, see if there's anybody wishing to address this committee, unless there's somebody online wishing to address this committee. Seeing none, we will move on. Next item on our agenda is a review of the 2024 lodging tax funding applications. And I think Assistant City Manager Shannon Kelly Fong, would you be wanting to lead out on that?
I am actually going to turn it over to our Management Analyst, Cindy Siglin.
Share the screen really quickly. Excellent. Well, thank you. We're here today to review the applications for the 2024 lodging tax funding cycle and potentially make some recommendations to move forward with interviews and get guidance on the selection of the applications for this year. Okay. So we will start, and let me do this, I apologize, by reviewing the marketing and capital projects applications. Starting with marketing, there were 4 applications for marketing this year that everybody should have received a copy of. Have you all had time to review those applications? Any thoughts, discussion, or recommendation on how you would like to proceed or who you may would like to interview for more information on the marketing applications?
Well, historically, what we've done is gone through the applications individually. I don't think that I see in what you've sent the breakdown for the type of application type. Is that these first 4 right here, table A?
Yes, table A, the first 4 are for marketing. There's also a copy of all of the applications in your agenda packet as well.
And I printed out the applications.
Perfect.
Well, the ones that I could, I emailed packet number 1 to myself and printed it, but packet number 2 was too large for the Gmail server to receive it,
Okay.
which must be pretty big because I think they're 25 megabyte server.
There were some substantial materials for the marketing applications this year that did quite large files.
Okay, so I guess we could start off in that direction if we want to go, and if everybody agrees that we want to go by the table method as opposed to the method that we received them in. So I don't think there's a problem with that.
Hello, Ruth.
There she is.
Hello, sorry. I saw another email that said 2, so I don't know. I thought it was at noon, but then I saw another one that said 2, so sorry.
We're hearing a little background noise.
Okay, still,
No, and your mic is a little hot.
pardon?
Your mic is a little hot.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but okay.
We might be able to do that on this side. Did you want to bring Ruth up to speed and the methodology that we're using this moment?
Sorry about that. I'm not feeling very well today, but hey, I'm here, okay?
Not a problem. Ruth, right now what we're looking at is the 2024 applications for marketing. There were 4 marketing applications this
Right.
that are included in your packet. And what we're doing is allowing you to review and discuss and provide any guidance for us as to who you may like to call in for interviews next week for more information regarding their application.
Okay,
We'll get started then. First up, we have the Visitor and Convention Bureau of Thurston County. Doing business as Experience Olympia and beyond. You've seen these guys before. It looks like their request is similar to last year. My numbers are right. So let's get into discussion. Ruth, I know you have thoughts about VCB. They're first on our list.
yeah, I guess I have thoughts about 2 things, and it's as it relates to marketing. And one is and this isn't to VCB, but I don't know how to address it because it's with Chamber and VCB. And at one time, I don't know that we felt Lacey was getting enough exposure from VCB. And then, so we did Discover Lacey. So now we have Discover Lacey, and VCB has stepped up to where they've given us a lot more exposure. And to me, it seems like I think we gave Chamber $20,000 to run Discover Lacey. And I know I'm talking about 2 different applications, but it's still, we're using that money. It seems like we are duplicating some efforts there.
And I know we've had this discussion a couple times, and since I think it was our 21 funding cycle, was it after 21 funding cycle that we had board members at VCB?
Yeah. Okay. I think it was, yeah, around in that time, yeah.
And also, there's been a change in leadership at the VCB. I think it was, I want to say 2021, maybe end of 2020.
Going from Shauna to.
Correct.
Yeah.
Internet. And through that process, they did a lot of listening sessions throughout the entire Thurston County community and started developing a framework for marketing and tourist promotion strategies countywide.
And they also revamped their website to where you can look at events that are specifically in a jurisdiction. I thought that was a nice update and upgrade.
To our Lacey specific page. So.
So it sounds like they're hearing us.
Right.
Are we in favor of bringing them in for another presentation? I know we got one from them last year.
I don't think I need to see him again this year, so. Ruth might. Have you met?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
It's the same. It's not going to change. It's just.
I mean, I guess the only thing that, we could contrast and compare is metrics from last year and metrics from this year in terms of clicks and those types of things. I don't know that that's necessarily going to warrant bringing somebody in for a presentation. It might be nice to see updated metrics.
Sure. I would agree, but I don't think, I think that could be sent to us.
Yeah.
Versus in person.
I agree with that.
And are there specific metrics that you would like to see, or just a comparison from last year?
The best thing we could do to really evaluate would be a comparison from last year to cycle to this current cycle. Oh, okay, I just want to make sure everybody got a chance. Moving on. I guess if we're not really making a decision on funding just yet,
Correct.
but we're also not tossing this out. We would like to.
Yeah, maybe just to provide a little bit more background, what we're really wanting to do today is take an overview of all of the applications we received and we put them in category. So like Sadie started off with marketing, and then we eventually want to go to capital, and then spend the bulk of the time taking a look at the events and taking a look at, you know, a pilot rubric, which we just used to test out this year, not to make any decisions, but just to kind of review and take a look at what we came up with that. And then to get guidance on who you all would like to get presentations from all three categories. And then we can have future discussions on funding priorities. But really what we want to know is who should we be getting more information? Who should we bring out back in front of you all so that we can continue this process?
Good enough, and I don't think that BCB is somebody that we're gonna, you know, want or require additional information from. At this point in time, we know what they're about, we know what they do. So we'll be able to move on to the next one, which is Thurston Talk. North American Talk Media Group, but Thurston Talk is the way we know them. And again, this is under tourism promotion and marketing. Thurston Talk is not a nonprofit, is it? They're for profit.
Right.
Okay. So let's open up discussion on Thurston Talk.
So I know that the city does contract with them already, right? And I don't know how much they contract with them for already. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really know either in terms of what the city does with Thurston Talk. It looks like their ask is 38,000. I did take a look at their sheet. I would like some more information. And so I would like to see them if.
I would like to see them as well. And I think it's just for me, it's just a general overview. I know they've been in our community a long time. I believe they've switched hands a couple times, different leadership in that organization. So just to hear a general presentation focused around how they're growing how they're growing Lacey would be pretty important to me. So
I think Dan Jones is still there though, right?
I believe it.
Chad?
Yeah, I did.
And he's one of the founders,
So it was Dan and Martin, wasn't it?
right? But Dan is still there, I think.
So yeah, it'd be great to have Dan come in and just do a overview presentation. So
And I would kind of like to know what we do already with them.
Yeah, we can certainly get the information on our contract with Thurston Talk. I do know it allows us to have a certain number of articles each year that we get to work with their staff in addition to our staff to create, but we can certainly get more information for this committee on that.
Do we feel like Talk puts heads in beds?
And that's part of the application review for this committee.
Yeah, I don't.
And they're in the marketing category so that, you know, it's, are they effective in getting the word out about events and things in Lacey that's focused of the LTAC committee?
Well, so with that,
Directly put heads in bed.
we would kind of want to know what their readership is, and how far that is directed as well.
and they do have on page 93 of our PDF packet, 92, 93, they do go into demographics, what their readership is. And kind of tells a little bit about, but I'd like to know what like businesses they're highlighting. It was kind of vague in their application on that portion. So on page 1 of their, or 91 of 174, it tells a little bit, but I'd like to see them go in a little bit more in depth.
And so that's two. I remember last time we had so many.
Right.
that what was it spread out over like a two-day period?
And it might be, as we move through this process, determine that, hey, we need to do like an AM and a PM with a break in between. So we'll certainly want to have that discussion once we know how many we're looking at for presentations.
Okay, all right.
Right.
And okay, so have we decided that we do want to see them?
Please.
Let's see, next up we have City of Lacey Public Affairs, the banner program. For 10,000. And Shannon, is that your program or is that?
So it's under public affairs. Donna Feliciano is leading this particular effort. And this is something that LTAC has funded previously. And I know Donna provided a bunch of information in the packet. And as well as some of the current banners that are out in Northeast Lacey.
So when we say banners, are we including the boxes?
So a different program, we do have a utility box program that is separate from that, and then we certainly have a midtown emphasis as well. These are just for banners that would hang outside of midtown, and we've been focusing on areas that are high traffic, where we see a lot of people coming from not just the community, but outside of the community as well.
Yeah, I remember when we funded before, it was, for the purchase of the banner equipment, and the two-prong thing where the banner hangs from. In this cycle, I guess we could, for more information, we can just invite Donna over and say, hey.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just briefly, yes, the request would be for banners and potentially some equipment. We found with our last effort, we didn't need to purchase any equipment. We just put it all towards banners. But certainly as we're looking to areas that might not have equipment, it could be more of an equipment purchase.
Sure.
But there are still areas that have banner equipment hanging on poles.
What's the equipment specifically you're talking about? What the poles are hanging on?
Yeah, so well, the poles are there and existing in the right of way. This is just the brackets that allow us to hang the banners.
Oh,
So
gotcha. I thought you meant buying with banner making equipment. I'm like, okay.
No.
Kind of printer, but-
No.
And for the $10,000, how many banners are we talking about here? Just a few or?
I believe the packet has all of the information on what we were able to do in the previous year, but I want to say, and we can pull up the packet and get better information. It was around 30 or so banners that were printed.
Well, we can visit that and take a deeper dive once we decide, when we have the meetings and have the 5 minutes for that group to come in and have a seat. So if we do want to see them, it'd be nice to have an update on the program. It was really new when we first visited that, and just kind of nice to see, an update and, how it's progressed, and where we're spending the money at. I think it's probably going to be heavily focused on some of the print work, sure, equipment, but we can take a deeper dive on that in a 5-minute session. I think that might give the committee a little bit more time to, those packet briefs are pretty thick, so thick you can't even email it to yourself to print it. So,
Yeah.
Ruth, did you have any closing thoughts on?
No. I'm fine with that. With them, just so we understand a little bit more, I think probably would be good presentation, but not in depth.
So Lacey South Sound Chamber of Commerce is our next one. We've seen this before, and I don't know that we need to have them in. Well, if we're having a net in, should we have them in too? Is that the question?
Is the VCB coming in person or to follow up with written materials?
Or I guess, no,
So
you're right.
currently I
We're not
have the
having her
VCB
in.
not coming in, but we do want metrics.
We want metrics. What are your guys' thoughts on South Sound Chamber?
I think to get I think asking the same thing as metrics that we're doing for the VCB would be apropos for this one. I don't feel like I need to see them in person per se.
You want to drag Blake in here?
I don't need to.
I don't either.
There are opportunities to drag Blake in for later if we want, but I don't know.
Who's got it?
Well, I would like a little bit more information about Discover Lacey, which they're supposed to be handling, and I don't understand what they're doing with it. I only see posts once a week. And I think we gave him an additional $20,000, if I remember in the past, to promote Lacey when we weren't getting the promotion. And now we are getting more promotion. And Discover Lacey, I think we gave them, like I say, 20,000 and to post once a week. I'd like to know what all they're doing with this Discover Lacey. Personally, I would.
So a Discover Lacey update.
And I don't know, maybe he can just provide us with information if he doesn't have to come in.
Well, the thing about it is if we do have them come in, which I'm not saying we should, but with the amount of applications that group has with us, it might be helpful because you could, really run down like 3 or 4 projects in one sitting.
Mhm.
So that would, knock out at least a few of these. So I definitely wouldn't mind having them come in. If it's just, yeah. Because the barbecue festival, the golf classic, this one,
Winter Fest or whatever, they have a winter.
and save or something, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And also their visitor information center.
Yeah.
They operate off of 8th Street.
And Blake's been leading that organization for, is it 3 years now?
I believe so.
Somewhere in that
I
ballpark.
believe it's right during the pandemic or right before the pandemic, so.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it would be a good idea to have them come in. You guys in favor?
Sure.
Is that all right?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
And once we revisit all of these categories, we can touch on which materials we would like them to bring and prepare in more detail for you as well.
All right.
So committee, just to really quickly recap, I want to make sure we're walking away with some good directions. But what we have is to get presentations for the Lacey banners, for Thurston Talks, and for the chamber, but to include all of the chamber's events all at once. And at this time, not have a presentation from the VCB, however, ask for some additional information on and so I heard a couple of things just really quickly for Thurston Talk to really focus on the general overview, also what the readership looks like, how it's growing Lacey, and for the public affairs banners to get a little bit more information on events where they're hung, how many are going to be created. Is that a pretty good overview of this category? Is there anything we're missing?
That sounds about right. Anybody?
Mhm.
I think you captured the spirit of that.
Into our next category.
Yes, so the next category that we have is capital projects. There were also 4 applications in this category. The total amount requested for this category is $271,500.
All right. Well, first up, we have the rack. And I don't know if you guys are up to speed on the things that have been happening with the rack and what the future plans are for the rack. But I would love for you guys to hear it. Because it's very exciting stuff with the paving that's happening, the EV chargers and these types of things. So just so that the committee can really get a full understanding of the development potential and what the future of the rack is, I'd love to have somebody come in and just discuss that with the committee so that they can hear what we hear in council, get a full understanding of what we see in the emails and stuff like that. I don't think they get that from the outside. So I think it would be great for you guys to hear 5 minutes of that.
Perfect.
I agree.
Next, we have Washington Center. Man, they've been with us a while and we've seen their presentation.
Is that an increase? I don't think that's an increase, right?
Same as last year.
Same.
Yeah, okay. I'm fine with them not coming in.
Mr. Shin?
I've heard them enough times.
Okay. We'll put them on the approvable list. Next up, we have Lacey, City of Lacey Museum for 48.5. And is that, are you guys up to speed on the future museum project and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I am.
I am too.
Okay.
And that's of course the future museum project, but this request is for maintaining the current operations and activities, things like the mobile annual displays and events.
So I know we've seen their presentation. And I know that at this level, it looks like they're still at 1.5 FTEs. Does anybody need to see them?
I do not.
No. And I think that's the same request, correct?
It is.
Yeah.
Mr. Shin?
I'm looking at the number twice for like Washington Performing Arts and City Museum. I mean, I know there are different, different categories altogether, but $35,000 for 105 paying visitors versus 650 for 48,500. Maybe I need to stop by the museum, see for myself.
You can be the yes who brings them in.
What was that?
You
Bring
can-
them in?
Yeah.
No, I don't need to bring them in. It sounds like you guys have, I just need to study a little bit more and actually go there and see exactly what they're doing. They really appreciate that. What they're doing for the people, and so.
Okay. Their estimated visitor number fluctuates based on the presentations that they have, the things that they're showing. So when they did the Sasquatch thing,
Yeah.
the numbers.
Yeah.
dropped. And so this number isn't an exact reflection of their overall, attendance, but it does fluctuate a little bit. But if it wouldn't be, a bad thing to go and take a look at it and see where those dollars are going and see if you agree with us.
Right. Those right. Go to museum.
Just to clarify really quickly on the Lacey Museum. So we previously, in previous years, had 1.5 FTE. However, with the last budget here in 2023, updated it to 2 full-time employees.
2.0?
Correct.
Oh,
Okay. Moving on, we have the City of Lacey Regional Athletic Complex. Just to be clear, we are not asking for the museum to do a presentation.
Correct.
right.
I know I read it in the packet, but I don't remember the scope of their funding offhand and what percentage LTAC is of said funding. So I don't, but we can move on. It's all right with the committee.
Yeah.
Okay. City of Lacey Regional Athletic Complex. $8,000 for addition of golf cart staff.
I have a question. So could those golf carts be used for other events or just the rack?
So I'll let the city manager start, but I will say, I've been out at the rack at many events, and staff getting around on the golf carts is very helpful to expedite the processes of supporting events that are out there, but city manager.
Shannon hit it on the head, and it wouldn't go offsite because the rack, those cars will be at the rack facility. So to go offsite, they'd have to be transported. But it's really to be able to manage, because you have multiple events at the rack where you have soccer activity going on or baseball activity and other events in between. So they can cover and serve all those different events that are occurring simultaneously.
Yeah, I know. I just am familiar with, I know that Fun Fair always wished they had a golf cart to be able to use because there's a lot of running around there too. But I totally understand the rack situation with the golf carts. I think it's great.
Any other thoughts?
$8,000, how many golf carts is that? Just two?
I'll have to go back and look into that.
I've never bought a golf cart.
Either of them. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I don't either.
I just assume it's expensive.
Well, sorry, committee members, I know we do have a presentation, a 5-minute presentation on the rack, just kind of the maintenance and operations, but also to provide a general overview of what's going on. And I think we can certainly have them throw on a little briefing of what they intend to use for the golf carts and how many that will get them moving forward.
Absolutely. That would be awesome.
Great.
I did have a thought, and I feel like I should save it for the presentation, but at the same time, I don't want to front load or back load anything. So when I see something like this, I think, I don't want somebody else, this at the expense of somebody else not getting the funding that they need would be kind of sad to me. So while I'm in favor of us having, a premier facility and, drawing in and being able to run that facility as highly and effective and as efficient as possible, I don't want somebody else to miss out because we gave money to the city. And somebody else didn't get fully funded for, because somebody who doesn't have, as many funding vehicles as the city has. So I look at this and I think it's nice, but I also think I don't want, a smaller organization to miss out because we did this.
Right, we don't have golf carts just because we don't have golf carts.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one as well, honestly, we really suck for someone. Because I would assume that they could probably get this 8,000 for somewhere else as well, right?
So I think this is certainly part of the discussion, and we really, for today's purposes, just want to know who should we bring in for presentations, and then have what you're getting into after we do those presentations.
Which is why I preface it with, I don't want to front or back load. I just want to know. I just want that to be known. So we'll bring them in, and I would love to see that as part of their presentation, because that would be really cool. And I especially for these guys who don't get to see all the daily, on what we're doing out there. So it's, yeah.
Yeah.
And, we're gonna have more of the rack developed. So I understand this need. Or should I call it a need, or should I just call it an ask?
I think,
Where's my-
I think it's both. I think it's both.
Certainly, I think, as we bring in people, they'll be explaining what exactly the purpose of that request is. So, again, going back to the golf carts, they do support events, and I'm sure, as part of their presentation moving forward, they're going to want to now talk a little bit more about this. So this is all really helpful information to continue the conversation. So just to recap, for this particular category for capital, we will bring in the city of Lacey to talk about the rack and have both items be part of the discussion, as well as just a discussion of kind of what the general kind of future of the rack looks like. For the museum, there was no need for a presentation, but a little bit more follow-up on just the overall budget of the museum.
Please.
And then for the Washington Center for Performing Arts, there was no need for a presentation at this time. Does that sound like an accurate overview?
That is correct.
Right.
So far we've had a lot of operations and regulars, I'll say. I've been really wanting to get to the new people. So if you want to bring us into our next.
Yeah, the next information that I have is the event application information. This year, the committee did also test pilot using a scoring rubric to see how that would work and potentially impact the selection process. That is a tool this year, not something for definitive decision making at this time. You do all have a copy of the scoring rubric in your agenda packet as well, if that's helpful. So what I will do is kind of give you an overview of how the scoring went and some notes we had, and then we will be able to go back and look at individual events if you would like. So this year, there were a total of 18 event applications. Those event applications totaled $358,544. So quite a few this year. Some we will get to that are new, some returning. What I have here is a highlight of how much each event requested, and that is in the order that they were ranked with the scoring rubric. So to your left, we have the men's Division I, women's Division II rugby season received the highest overall scoring with the piloted scoring rubric. They requested $66,044, all the way down to our 18th event, which was the Lacey South Sound Chamber Golf Classic that requested $5,000. So that's just a view of how everything ranked with the scoring and how much each event requested. And then here we have the average score for all of the events. This was out of a possible 130 points per application and is the average scores. So we can see we had some higher scores and really a lot in that 80-point range. The first question that we asked was if your activity, event, or program was new. New is defined as being 3 years or younger for this question. So you can see here we did have 3 completely new events who received 10 points out of that. We did have some notes on the scoring rubric as to questioning how much Foley Town Soccer, how long they have been established and working with us. And then also some notes about applications that had negative figures listed in this category. Those negative figures were provided, corrected in your packets and should have been positive figures. So just to call out a couple of those notes that we received with the scoring rubric, but overall, you can see that we had 3 completely new events and a substantial amount of returning events.
And Sadie, if I could for just a second, I know Sadie kind of mentioned, hey, this is again our pilot. We're just looking at it and we're certainly going to want additional feedback. Not necessarily today to go in a deep dive of feedback, but we will be asking for,
Yes.
hey, if we are to continue to look at this moving forward at a future meeting, we'd love to have a really in-depth conversation. So what we're just going over today is, hey, here's how it's scored. This is just kind of some additional information as we're reviewing these packets and then getting some information on who you all would like to, again, bring back for presentations to have future conversations about funding.
So are you saying that, did I hear you right when I heard you say we want to table the rubric discussion for another meeting?
In more detail, I think.
Sure.
And so we want to kind of go through and show kind of what it looks like and how it feels and what it did. And we can certainly, this committee could certainly take a look at it for, again, thinking about who they'd like to bring presentations in, but this isn't a definitive scoring rubric by any means. This is certainly just a pilot to kind of see where we're at, how we can improve it in the future, if we're even going to continue to use it in the future.
Yes.
Absolutely.
The next question that we had asked was about tourist attraction, and this is the ability to generate visitors from greater than 50 miles or not. So we did have 3 applicants who fully met the criteria, and the criteria to get the full 20 points on this was that you can attract visitors from greater than 50 miles. So based on the scoring, there were 3 candidates the committee felt could generate visitors from that distance. The in-between and the 10-point scores were events that demonstrated the ability to attract visitors, but maybe only from surrounding areas as opposed to that 50-mile marker used to attribute to heads and beds. So that's where we see a variance in this question. Another question was regarding marketing and the ability to promote local businesses, retail, and restaurants. We had several strong full 10-point scores here. This question was either a yes, you demonstrated that ability, or no, you didn't. So you can see how the scoring went with applications who had strong materials toward demonstrating promotion and other application considerations in that variance. We also asked a new question this year for the application, which was for programs to prove that they could have a safe, inclusive, and welcoming event. Overall, you can see most events demonstrated that score equally. And this also was a yes, you meet this criteria, or no, you don't question. Question 6 was regarding project impact and the event's ability to increase the number of people coming to Lacey or the Lacey UGA. This was again out of 10 questions. We had several who got 10 out of 10 points, and then a combination across the board. And then there was also a question about business collaboration and community collaboration. This question was worth up to 20 points, and the distinguishing factor to get that 20-point full score was in your application, can you show that you're already participating with Lacey businesses and collaborating with businesses? So you will see there were 3 applications who reflected that, and the rest maybe reflected the ability to generate positive impact, but didn't have that distinguishing already working with businesses factor. Another question asked was about program sustainability and the event's ability to demonstrate that they are sustainable. We did have a note on here that 2 events had been scored full points because of the success rate of the city's overall event. So you can see this is a question that all of our candidates were able to answer. The next question was regarding financial sustainability, and that's the event's ability to fund their event without lodging tax funding. Again, this was a 5-point question. Some events demonstrated that, some had a combination of that. There is a note also on here that one of our events, Chris Kringle, had a budget of 18,000 and we're asking us for 12,000 from the committee. So something to keep in mind in your considerations, and we can get back to that in reviewing individual events. The other question that we looked at is the location of the events. This was a yes, you're in Lacey or the urban growth area, or no, you're not. So you can see the events who are all held in Lacey here, and events who are not held in Lacey or maybe not directly in Lacey the entire duration of their event. We also asked about multi-day events, and that is how many days events last. This, we received applications both with multi-day events who span over one singular weekend and events who are multiple dates throughout the year. So some were 16 days, but they were single day occurrences. So that could impact scoring for this category and how one defines multi-day when it comes to events who are repeated but not continuous.
So are we looking for consecutive days in this, or if we, I know this isn't a rubric discussion, but when I think multi-day, I think consecutive. But I did notice in the applications that it was, you know, hey, we've got 16 Sundays lined up on your calendar, and those are I don't know, are those considered multi-day as well?
Technically, they would be multi-day because the event occurs more than one day, but that's something to consider in looking at next year when we're looking at what kind of questions we're asking and what are we looking for. And if it's something that we only want to see consecutive days moving forward.
Right, or so we have no, we have multi-day and we would have reoccurring.
Exactly. So
Oh,
really,
yeah.
yeah, and so I believe that's why we see such a variance in this question as well. I mean, some events are single day events, but we had a large number of events this year, and they are outlined in this list too. We have one that's 16 single reoccurring days, 20 single but reoccurring days. So really having that information for you all to consider with the questions moving forward next year, what is most important in that decision-making aspect.
Okay, gotcha.
And Deputy Mayor, this has been a really good learning experience for us. And so we're certainly looking forward to having these conversations in the future of how do we finesse this, or how do we, make a correction or an addition that will make this a more effective tool right now. And so it's really nice to have been able to kind of do this trial run, right?
Yeah.
To learn, oh, we actually maybe want to focus again in on a question like this and get a little bit more kind of a definitive response and answer.
Yeah, so at first I was all about, we need to do this off season. We're already short this season on time and so on and so forth. But, now that we've done this, I'm starting to realize a little bit more the value and the fact that, had we not done this, we wouldn't have anything to tweak. Which is, I definitely appreciated. I'm still in favor of revisiting this off season. So with these results, because, with the ideology that our design is to put heads in beds and generate business, are we going to look at reoccurring, the same way we're going to look at multi-day or, I don't know if reoccurring puts heads in beds, but multi-day most definitely does, right? Okay, anyway.
Right. Right.
Something we look
Yes.
forward to future conversations on.
Yeah.
Yes, and also great feedback from our applicants when doing this online for the first time. And this was a question that got some feedback from our applicants too. So we have that to share when we have the ability to go into a deeper dive of what the applicants thought of this or may want clarification on as well. So
That was another thing that I was hoping to bring up in this meeting was that it appeared to me that all the applications were typed in. I didn't see any handwritten. Did we, I know in our previous meeting, we discussed that, we wanted to do a hybrid year where we wanted to
Right.
just not totally rule out the people who had always applied on paper. And then just go with, look, if you can't get online and do it, you can't, we don't want to mess with you. So I didn't see any handwritten application. Was there a reason for that?
we did not receive any handwritten applications. So the paper copy was available this year as well as the new online version. And all of our applicants elected to apply online. And that was very well received by our community. They really appreciated having that as an option. So that's why you don't have any handwritten ones. We just didn't get any.
Okay, so it was available to them the same way it's always
Yep.
been, and they elected, no, I'm just gonna go to your website and fill it out.
Yes.
Okay.
And I,
So I noticed Polyfest didn't apply.
I noticed that too.
Yeah,
I will make that phone call.
well, I just wonder if they're gonna continue or it's too bad.
There's no way they're giving up. I'm wondering, now you got me wondering what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Was there any others that you noticed?
no, not right off the top of my head, but that one did stick out.
Chad,
Polyfest was the only one that I noted from last year, so that didn't apply.
do you remember some previous ones that,
I do. I remember like I was back when I was started, the Jazz Festival was the big one. That's-
Oh. Yeah, they're not in existence anymore.
Ended during pandemic, I believe, so.
if you guys think of some others that you feel like should be there, maybe, and maybe just aren't, please let us know. We'd like to reach out.
Uses bands.
That I think has a rename. I think they're rebranding it, so that's why they didn't go through. I think that's being rebranded.
Any others?
there was one more question that we asked that was also a newer consideration piloting this program this year. And this was the shoulder season events. These are events that occur October to April. So 4 of the 18 applicants have events that occur during that time. Again, we see some of these applicants have multi-day events. So when in the future considering looking at this information, do we want to look at reoccurring days of events to be categorized in that category? But this is just something to show us in an overview of kind of when are our events occurring and how that plays out. So 4 events occur during that time frame.
I'm gonna pause this real quick. I
Yes.
will forget this before we come back to this.
Okay,
I would love to see for this question to have the months listed, like cause I think it was like, does it
October.
occur October to April or does it outside of October to April? But I'd love to
Yeah.
see, so then I can match the month and just put it a yes or no. Cause that was, to me, I was like, I kept going, okay.
Yeah.
Look at that, am I inside the box or outside the box?
Yes.
So
Did you reread it several times like I would have to?
I reread it every time,
My,
all of them.
Yeah.
so my question was, in the same vein, are we talking about through the end of April or to the beginning of April?
Mhm.
And I think that was what was intended. However, I think you bring up a really good question of when we go back and we look at this, to actually put a definitive, 4/31, whatever the year
Okay.
is.
Yes.
Because there are questions like that, and I think, you brought up a really good point of some of these questions are just, what is the date? What is the fact, right? It's not so much,
Mhm.
I need to review this and I need to make a determination of a score based on how I'm seeing the information presented. And I think, again, that's something we've learned of, hey, we could probably be a little bit more proactive in this
Mhm.
process to help really with the use of the rubric moving forward. So
I just
again, we
feel-
appreciate the time you
Yeah.
all spent on it.
Yes.
What you're saying is like, we know the date, we pre-populate the answer.
If we know how long it's been in existence, we pre-populate the answers.
Yeah,
So,
things like that.
yes, so we, again, thank you, we're
Yes.
learning.
It was great.
Is it
I-
great?
Yeah.
Coolest, this was the
So-
coolest trial run ever, but I was just like, I had to slow down my brain and be like, okay, back, reread, select.
Mhm.
And I know I got
Yeah.
some wrong.
I think there.
I'm glad it's not just me.
Yes, no, this is just the foundation for what we could grow and change in the future.
Perfect.
So, there were a couple notes just with these submissions and scoring again. Are we counting the first day a multi-day event occurs, or if it's an occurrence throughout the year? And do we consider sports seasons when considering this?
Mhm.
So just some notes on the feedback that we got for that. Right here I have, and you all have a copy of this as well. Again, this is just an overall view in order of the ranking, how the applications went, who scored what, and then also a little financial information, so we can see everything is ordered in rank, 1 out of 18. A sum score for all scoring applications was a total of 390, and then the individual highest possible score per application individually was 130, so we can see.
So I went through all the questions and I hope my math is off, but I came up with 140. Question number 0 is 10. It's listed as question number 0. I'm hoping that you guys prove me wrong on this, because I went through it and I was like, this adds up to 140. And we don't have to have this discussion now. We can
Okay,
have this
That is
discussion when we
something
do
we-
our rubric discussion.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
I listed them all out. 0 through 21 and their point values.
and what is likely what happened, Deputy Mayor, and I appreciate the math check on that.
Yes.
Number one, is that question 0 was not taken into account when we put the data together. So I guess just for background and full transparency, and we just must have skipped it because it was question number 0.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you,
And we
Shannon.
went straight to question number 2. So that is just a minor error on our part.
Yes.
So
Okay, good enough.
Thank you for highlighting.
we certainly don't mind running through question 0 into the model and sending it out as an updated table and showing you all what the impact would have been. But I think these are, again, our pilot run through and a learning experience of don't name a question 0. Start with a
Yes.
question 1.
Okay, good
Yes.
enough.
Thank you, and then I will move this over. The other thing that I had included with this information for you all to review is, again, each application by ranking, how much they requested, and then the estimated visitors that they provided us, just to give an overview of essentially a cost per visitor with this funding for these events. So in the event that someone only has 150 visitors, that will increase the cost per visitor. So just a different way to look at and review.
I think is a fantastic thing, then something we've been missing over the years is looking at that. And I know we've talked about it where we've had 1-day events and they're requesting something, you know, pretty high versus an event that's, you know, lasting all year round or multiple events, and they're asking a lower amount. So taking that into consideration, and there is no right answer, but it helps me at least to make that best determination of where we're putting that money, and, you know, is the ROI there? So.
Excellent. Well, that is what I had for you. And if you would like, we can go back and look in more detail now at specific events and how these answers and scores played out. I wanted to just be able to show you how that test run of the scoring went and how that tool can be used.
Awesome.
Are there any questions that you specifically go back to and review?
Not at this time. I don't have any. Is anybody else?
I don't have questions to review. I'm just know that it's 1 and we have until 2. And knowing that there are 18 people on this list and we have to figure out who we're calling back, I think it would behoove us to put more energy in that.
Well, it looks like if we do, I mean, we've got the city for the first 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And so if we have the city in for one thing, or at least parks in for one thing, we could, I'm sure we could ask them if we had questions on the other items.
Right.
Right, since they're already gonna be here, maybe we can just jump to number 5.
Yeah, I honestly don't need, I mean, I attended, and thank you for putting them on our calendar this year. I
Yeah.
attended these events, and like, I don't have specific questions about Spring Fun Fair, the fireworks, or the cultural celebrations, so like, I don't need to know about those, but I don't know if there's anybody else in the group that needs to know.
No, I would like to hear about their new event.
Me too.
Okay.
The glow.
And I think it sounds exciting, but I'd just like to hear about it.
Perfect.
Okay, and then we also, well, that's community and economic development, so we'll have to visit that separately. Moving on to number 5, we have Capital Lake Fair. Thoughts, ideas?
Well, they're asking for additional money, I think, from 10,000 to 14. Am I right?
Correct.
And I don't think we get our $10,000 worth of it, so.
I would bring them in then specifically to ask question about what the increase is being used for and how they're really highlighting Lacey.
Mhm.
Those are the 2 biggest questions that come to mind.
Yeah, in their submission, they said that, you know, the highlight for Lacey is, you know, heads and beds, in that they're a multi-day event and people come from, you know, several miles out to, you know, spend time with family, go to this event, so on and so on. But I would like to address the additional funds with them. And
Right.
so, because that's a bring them in. Fair enough. Number 6, team tomorrow, South Sound Block Party. You know, when I was scoring this one, I hit a lot of good markers. In that their applications seem to be loaded with, you know, if we do, then this, you know, then we, of course, we're gonna, you know, direct our partners and our you know, our attendees to Lacey Hotels. So it seems to be loaded with, we want to partner with Lacey, and we want to include Lacey. We want this to be, you know, as much of a benefit to Lacey as Capital, you know, Lake Fair. I just don't know if we should, you know, last year we didn't take that chance, you know, but they're at the very same location as Lake Fair.
Well, they're not.
Or
They're
across
on
the
the port,
street.
they're at the port.
Yeah.
So Ruth, I think I'm gonna have to rely on you to back me up on this one.
Okay,
When we originally talked to the team, you know, the team with South Sound Block Party, we specifically said, in order to get funding, we would like you to go ahead and say, you know, heads and beds, you know, utilize us. And that was one of the givens, is that, yes, we will do that. And now it feels like they're dangling a carrot by saying, if you give us this funding, we'll include Lacey.
Right.
Which to me,
Right.
backwards from what we had originally asked when they first came in to give funding.
Right.
I don't mind that they're downtown Olympia. I look at that very much like the Washington Center. That, you know, people travel all over the region, and we know, because looking at South Sound Block Party's demographics, that they had 12 people that they put in hotels, they captured the area codes. So there are people traveling from outside to this event. So, and they stop, you know, to get gas, they stop to grab a burger, whatever, on their way down to the venue. We know that that happens. It's just part of the process. But I feel like the dangling of the carrot is, if you give us money, then we'll include you in this. And I feel like that's a little bit backwards.
Right, I agree.
And is that something that we did say originally? Do you recall? I mean, I think it was just you and Troy that were in the room at that time.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we should have them in and talk about that exact thing.
Yeah, because I'm not opposed to funding, but I am opposed to, we're gonna dangle a carrot in front of you after we've already talked about what we expect, our expectations are. And we know that they don't have a venue in Lacey. We've already talked
Right.
about venue space in Lacey and where we could potentially do this event, and we just don't have that the capacity right now. So I guess that's a yes for me too.
All right.
I think it should come in and present, because we have too many questions.
Great.
Regardless of-
Bring 'em in.
Sorry, but-
No, you're good, you're good.
Yeah.
No need to apologize here.
Okay, Fred U. Harris Lodge, number 70, Juneteenth celebration, $10,000, one-day event. Did anybody go to that event?
I didn't go this year, but I did the year before.
I went.
Yeah.
And I think I saw Assistant City Manager there,
I was there.
and did I see?
Yeah.
I had to leave early. I was cooking the ribs early.
Okay. This event is at the rack. These guys have been footing the bill for this for 40
Yeah.
years.
I know.
42?
Yes, this was the
This-
42nd year, so we'll be going on to 43rd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're finally asking for funding.
And last year,
Right.
correct me if I'm wrong, last year was the first year they asked us for funding, so.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions for them. I think it's great that they finally came to us and asked for money. Yay.
Right?
Yeah, I don't either. I have no questions for $10,000.
The food alone was worth that. It was awesome. Next, we have the American Lung Association, Reach the Beach, which starts right here in Lacey at the rack. I did not get a chance to attend this one. But I did get a new road bike this year. Anyway,
Just skip over the Lacey market, people,
That's part of the Lacey conglomerate.
So we'll bring in Team Lacey is what I
Yeah.
have in my
Yeah, we'll have
notes.
our
as part
economic
of
development
that.
staff talk specifically about that. That's right.
Gotcha, so we should be chair. We should be just actually had previously at hotel because of this event. So I've actually saw like an ROI on it because of it, so. It's $15,000 increase from last year.
This is a first time
So
request.
they're asking.
Should be
No.
second.
Okay.
Is it-
5,000 this
Yeah, they did increase.
so it's a $5,000 increase?
$10,000.
It's a $10,000 increase.
Oh,
I'm just saying I've seen an impact from the event, but if there's a $10,000 increase. That's why.
Yeah, if they're scaling up, maybe they can help share some scale up metrics with us, and we can get a better understanding of.
is that gonna be for this coming year or is it the following year? I can't remember.
I think we already funded them for this cycle, and so they're looking for next cycle in 24.
Correct.
Yeah, but when are they gonna scale up? in their application?
For next year, wouldn't it?
So Ruth, I think that was part of the question too of they've asked for the increase, so we'd like to hear a little bit more about what that is looking like. Whether we're seeing more individuals participating in the events and kind of what the impact is on Lacey
Yep.
in 2024 comparative to 2023.
I mean, it
Okay,
appeared to be the same 100-mile run. Maybe if there's, enough participants, they need extra hands and these types of things. I think we should hear from them, and because that's a pretty substantial increase in terms
right,
of percentages.
Yep.
How many are we at? So in terms of how many people we've asked to come in?
We have quite a number, so I've got 1, 2, and I'm lumping the city ones, so we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 at this point.
So far, we're at 8.
And that includes multiple city ones, though, just to again to throw that out there, multiple city ones.
Lump all the city ones together into one.
Yes,
What does that bring
we're
us
at 8.
to?
At 8.
Okay, so 8 presentations. Each presentation is,
It's about 40 minutes right there, if we're doing 5.
And I would anticipate again with the city being lumped into 8, we'd want to allocate a bit more time, but yes, having kind of that 5-7 minutes kind of
okay,
time frame
So we're
for a
in an hour right
presentation.
there,
Yeah.
basically.
so we're about an hour.
So
So
right
we only
now-
have 10 more though to get through at this
Mhm.
point
I
as
love
well.
your optimism.
If we get on the city, about the museum, you don't need to probably hit everything that the market at the depot and pull down whatever specific things that the committee wants to hear from the city.
Okay, so moving on to South Sound Chamber Golf Classic 5,000 for 250 visitors, 1-day event. I have not attended.
I haven't either.
See an ROI in this, honestly.
But like I said last year, that event started as a fundraiser for Lacey Spring Fun Fair when we were under chamber. And then they came back and started asking us for money. And it seemed to be that it was pretty successful at the time. So I don't know.
We are having a Lake Inn, right?
Yeah.
And, as part of their charter, they are required to keep records on each of their events. Maybe he can show us, the benefit, the financial benefit to the community, in terms of this event. It looks like it's not been able to sustain itself.
If we're being specific, question 5 states that they're working with the local businesses. It specifically speaks to like Candlewood Inn and Suites. But then question 8, have you reserved any hotel rooms? Are you participating with any hotels? No. So I
Yeah.
feel like it's contradictory. So I would also invite them in.
Like the deputy mayor just pointed out, we are having them come in so we can have them present a little bit on this event as well as the other events.
Discover
They're
Lacey.
also hosting, well, and so as part of the Discover Lacey, also the Winter Fest event as well, which is number 13 on the list.
I'm wondering how they went from being a fundraiser to needing funds.
Good question.
Okay, Washington Senior Games. Is this the same level as prior levels? I mean, we all know that the.
I'm looking here.
It's the same.
What I love about it is they rent rooms.
Yes, they do.
I have-
Yeah, and aren't they one of the top tourist attractions too? From BCB told us. I always call them BCB, I'm sorry. But don't they bring a lot of people to the area?
You. I don't need to see these guys.
I don't either.
Yeah,
One of the few people. that's- I'm really back in the hotels, down in the street.
They're not really loud and obnoxious either, are they?
Oh, they party for you.
yeah.
They have a real good time outside.
Okay.
With beers and drinks and,
It will be a Netflix special before we know it.
As So Deputy Mayor,
Yeah.
that was item 15, because the rest of them we already have coming in for presentations, and we'll make sure they touch on each of these.
Okay, so, thank you. And Ole Soccer Foundation, I enjoyed reading their application. 20 single days, I can't see at least some of those being multiple day, right? Like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Or are they truly 20 single days?
You know, they didn't clarify when they answered that question, and that's, again, one we can look at in the future as to how to clarify that information. But I believe they intended to capture the soccer season with their application.
And I reached out to Parks on this one and asked, is it, are they using Lacey Fields? And in their application, it says they use Olympia Fields and Lacey Fields. And so they are using the rack. Do we have any heads and beds on this one?
See, that's what's gonna kind of get to. A lot of these soccer teams I've noticed throughout the years, they cancel maybe a week ahead or something like that, because sometimes the venues change from here to Centralia. And I've been seeing
Oh,
happen then with soccer and softball. Those two sports, for some odd reason, they always don't, it's never guaranteed, you know, and usually when they do book rooms with us, I book their cutoff date at least like 3 or 4 weeks beforehand, just because I know they cancel a lot. So my only question, Ollie Soccer, is if we do give the 55,000, do we have a guaranteed like event here versus, okay, we gotta switch to a different venue just because of so-and-so. Usually they don't even give us a reason why they quit, not quit, but a reason why they switch venues. So it's really difficult to give them money from me personally, just because they switch so much. So if I can have a guarantee that they're gonna have it in Lacey, then cool. But if not, then I'm a little hesitant to give them $55,000.
Can we bring Ryan and talk about that? Can we also clarify question 8, which is, have you reserved rooms in Lacey at a hotel called Other? So I'd like to- I haven't heard of that one yet, so
I haven't been.
It's that new brand.
it's that new brand, so. But I'd love, Ryan can kind of fill us in, and I think, that might help Andrew address some concerns that he has.
well, and also their funding request is for 55,000, right? And are they the same as Olympia Soccer Foundation? Is that the same?
Yes.
Huh? Is it?
Yes.
Okay, so we used to give them only 10,000. I mean, we gave them 10,000. And now they want 55?
Maybe they can explain that too.
Yep.
Okay, so we definitely want to see them. Spouses Club of Lewis McCourt. I did not get to go to this event. I heard about it. And I like that it's off season. And I like that it's I won't say it's for soldiers, but it's initiated by the wives of soldiers or the spouses of soldiers and the soldiers themselves. Last year, if I remember correctly, they had it in the UGA at the county fairgrounds
Right.
in the off season, in our shoulder season. Okay.
And they're moving it to the Lacey Community Center, I think it said.
That part I didn't see on there. That would be great.
Could somebody look at that? I don't have the ability to look at it right now, but something makes me think I read that.
They were,
And they're looking
their
at
packet too.
a $3,000 increase from last year.
Okay.
Right.
It does say on the application that the event location is the Lacey Community Center this year, which previously it had been at the Thurston County Fairgrounds.
Right.
And they're asking for the increase to attract more people from afar
So they want some.
and utilize more lodging. Since it's ultimately a fundraiser, we are need to do more than just break even.
And then for people that do get funding, are we automatically putting them on the VCB page and the different pages that would help their event?
So I know that has been an emphasis of the VCB, is to make sure to advertise all of the LTAC funded events and then work with those program providers as well to get more advertising out in the community.
After the funding decisions are made, they'll send out a flyer to each of the funding recipients to say, give us this type of information and here's how we can connect you to our.
So we just need to ensure that every group is following that so
Yep.
then they can get that. So I don't know that I would agree that that is the BCB's sole goal to do, since they have to do the entire county, but if they
Right.
choose everybody, I think that would be hard, but if we could put that back on the people that we're funding, I think that would help the BCB as well.
Mhm.
I don't feel like I need to see these guys. We saw them last year. But I, anybody can say yes. Amen.
Back for once, but overall, it's just an event for fundraising. I mean, is it just, they make stuff like crafts and they sell it fundraise? Is that essentially what I'm getting at?
Are we on Chris Kringle still?
Yes.
Okay. I don't need to see Chris Kringle, yes, but that it's, they bring in different
Mhm.
distributors and they that benefits the community and specifically
Scholarships and stuff.
scholarships.
Mhm.
And it's also an avenue for soldiers who are, or should I say spouses of soldiers who are deployed to have something to do during that holiday season.
Mhm.
They bring in, they had the beer vendor, they had, they had a whole bunch of stuff that, so it spoke to not just one group of people, they diversified it, so it was a little bit.
Right.
Everyone's welcome, and we've got something for everyone, kind of attitude.
I don't think they would mind coming in and just, 2-day event. I don't think they would mind coming in and just telling us, how it went.
It's a 2-day event, but it's usually needs heads and beds, so it's all I really care about.
All right, so Gateway Rotary, bunkers, balls and birdies. I think this is new.
Right, it is.
It's the 1 day, 5,000. The location is Olympia. I don't know. It's not, I'm familiar with Gateway
Country club
Rotary.
then? Is it the country club? If it's Olympia or we have a nicer golf course.
Other than Indian Summer.
Yeah, is that Lacey?
Indian Summer?
Indian
No,
Summer is that
that's a-
Olympia?
That's their.
Unincorporated
Thurston County,
Thurston
unincorporated
County.
jurisdiction, Olympia's UGA.
It's Olympia's UGA.
Yes, Indian Summer is.
I'd like to know where they're
Okay.
at. I mean, I don't need them in for a presentation, but I'd like to know where maybe a follow-up question as to where their event is going to be held specifically.
I scored them an 80, but I also counted question number 0, so that would give them a 70.
So the event, it does say the capital city.
Oh, it's Capital City.
That's right.
So that's unincorporated.
No, we
That's city
annexed it.
license.
Lacey.
Now we annexed.
That's right. My mom was on one of the holds.
So
So that is the event.
whenever we get a new one, it's always nice to meet and greet face to face with our new people. Last year, we talked about the possibility of setting aside, somewhere in the range of 5 to 10% of our funding for new events, to be held. We didn't, turn that into, a rule or anything like that, but I like meeting the new people.
Okay.
And see what, hey, tell us what you're bringing to the community. I'd love to talk to you about
Let's
it a
do
little bit.
They did the Brews, this replaces their Brews Brats Festival.
Okay.
They had,
I know we've already covered this ground, but just to clarify for anybody who is watching or reading, so it does say Olympia as the location. However, that's pulled by address and not actually the jurisdiction. So just to clarify, this is an event that is in the city.
Okay.
This is Lacey.
That
So,
makes me feel better that we're here, so that's great.
and we've done things with Gateway Rotary before.
Mhm.
I don't know for what reason they changed it from beers, brats and whatever to bunkers, balls and birdies. I would definitely like a Gateway Rotary person to come and talk to us about that.
I think I read, and maybe I didn't, but it was volunteer man hours. They were having difficulty with that.
Last couple of years of trying to get
Yeah.
type of food, the coordination and planning, getting the right
Mhm.
vendors there was a volunteer issue for the club.
Right.
Big,
Right.
So this event, this is gonna be at the, what is that called? The Fire Creek? Is that?
It's the clubhouse restaurant at Campbell City Golf Course.
Lastly, we have Deschutes Rugby, 2023 Men's Division I and Women's Division II rugby season. I remember their presentation and can we just get a quick history of what, where we started with them and where we are with them in terms of, I know that we did some things at the RAC, to support them, and they contributed some things to the, was it the lights or the goalposts or the
Goalpost end, yeah. From previous years. I think they're looking at just expanding that league and activity and in the season.
Is this an increase?
But their increase is 56,000.
Yeah.
From last year.
So I would, based on that alone, I would like to see them to talk about that increase.
And last year was 24,871.
24,871 last year.
It was?
27,230.
Oh, 27. Okay, so I was looking on the wrong line. Sorry,
So
I'll do the year to date, sorry.
but it's still a big increase. Yeah.
more than double.
Right, so just to recap, and this one is gonna be a little bit here, but I want to make sure I've got this all correct. So for all of the city events, we'd like a really brief update, bringing in parks, bringing in community and economic development to talk about the different events going on. And then starting with Capitol Lake Fair, yes, to bring them in to hear about why they have an increase in what they're asking for, also highlighting the city of Lacey. To bring in a team tomorrow to talk about the South Sound Block Party and to talk about, what kind of, getting information out and working with the city and that collaboration would look like.
Did you say tomorrow?
Team
tomorrow.
tomorrow,
Oh, team
but it's
tomorrow.
for
Okay,
the South
sorry.
Sound Block Party. There is no presentations tomorrow, just to
Okay.
clarify.
Yeah.
Not having the Fred U. Harris Lodge come in to answer any additional questions. Having the American Lung Association for Reach the Beach come in and talk a little bit about their increase as well and kind of what the future of that event is going to look like. Having the Lacey South Sound Chamber come in to talk about their marketing request as well as their event requests. Not having the Washington State Senior Service Games come in and present. There were no questions additional to that one. Having the Ollie Soccer Foundation for Ollie Town Soccer come in and clarify a bit on event timing and also to talk about events and cancellations and what their policy looks like that, as well as some clarifications on who they're working with here as far as hoteliers. To bring in the Spouses Club of Lewis McCord for the Chris Kringle Markets and to ask about the increase as well for that event, and then to bring in the Gateway Rotary Club for bunkers, balls and birdies, and to talk about why they changed events and kind of what this is going to look like since it is a newer event. And then finally, to bring in the Deschutes Rugby Club to talk about their increase in the activities going on with that particular program. Does that sound like a pretty good overview, or is there anything I'm missing?
Sounds like a robust day or two. And, I know we probably have more people come. I don't know if we have more people come in than some of the other LTAC committees do or not. But I was trying to set up, am trying to set up an off-season kind of a LTAC collaboration that we could just get together and meet with the other LTACs.
Perfect.
And one of those things is, are we overlapping? Are we
funding something in somebody else's jurisdiction that maybe they should be funding more and we should be taking the second or third position on?
We can be having those discussions, we don't have to spend a month. We can just get together for a day. Maybe we can have lunch or something like that and just kind of discuss those things with them. Off season, we were talking about the potential of a little bit of rulemaking, tightening up this rubric. And what else did I have? That must not have been that important.
I think with the rubric, it's gonna be great to see year after year after year and see what the trends are. That's the models and the trends, because as history prevails, people start the committee, they leave the committee, and then we lose that institutional knowledge. So having data to go back and look at year after year, I think is gonna be super helpful for anybody moving forward.
And then that, and then following up with reporting data of the previous years and each one of the recipients reporting out the results too, and compare back to that rubric and fine tune.
Mhm.
Can I have Troy, after you finish, Troy, can I have you just go over the numbers, what we saw, what
Good.
for what our budget is, where we stand?
The other thing I was gonna add to on that meeting in the off season in January and February timeframe was, looking at that rubric and fine tune it, but also looking at talking about funding priorities, if that's something that the LTAC want to set. And then it sounds like we get feedback on the online submittals going, this trial of going hybrid with the submittals of in-person or drop-off submittals versus online. We can kind of fine tune that going into next year as well.
Yeah, one question about that before we kick over to Troy. Are we thinking that if like an applicant, because we want to make sure that underserved folks are being taken care of as well, is there a mechanism if we had to do a paper that somebody on the staff would that be a conflict of
Sure.
interest? Would that be something that we could do to make sure that their materials are submitted digitally if we choose to go that route? Is that kind of a question that?
I remember one time, Visitor and Convention Bureau, a lady came and she said she helped people apply for, or helps one agency, I don't know who it was, work through that application process. I wonder if they're still up to doing that.
Yeah, I just don't want to, working in the nonprofit spectrum right now in the world, we're very tight. Everybody's tight. Everybody doesn't have staff, but I would hate to put that on another person that also is going for LTAC funding. So if there's a different vehicle that we could do, because I mean, the VCB and Experience Olympia is a participant in this program, and for having them put their own packets together and then have the opportunity to build somebody else's packet, I don't know that that's a fair thing to do.
I don't think they built their packet. I think they helped them work through some stuff, but I don't know that they built it. But
Ruth, my question is more if somebody came in that, Chad didn't have access to a computer and I wanted to go for funding, what's that vehicle look like if we're only doing digital? So,
And we come
Yeah.
back this fall and look at what are those options for
Okay.
creating accessibility, because we don't want to make sure it's accessible. And I'll turn to Shannon because she probably has some ideas.
Yeah, and I was actually gonna add in that, like, we certainly want to make sure that we have accessibility, but I think the first thing to kind of recognize, and today, that this round of funding is 1 year funding, but we only received electronic. And we provided the option though to have a paper, and so I think that's something we can certainly look at continuing to doing and seeing if, that if those materials are used over time. And certainly, as we evaluate the systems that we use for the online version, whether or not there is an accessibility way to make sure, and so we're not reproducing or recreating,
that's the
materials
last thing
over and
we
over
wanna
again.
do.
So I think that's certainly something, further discussion, but it's easy at this current point in time because it's not requiring a significant amount of work.
And there are some recommendations for that January, February time to review really how this application process worked, what our applicants had to say, and some proposed changes to review at that time. So that's
It'd
definitely
be
up
good.
for consideration. It can be written into the policy.
Great.
And we just, definitely appreciate you guys increasing our digital footprint, bringing us up to date, bringing us up to speed. I know you've been at it for a while. Our permit, you can pay permits online now. There's a lot of things that we're doing. We just want to make sure that nobody gets left behind.
Absolutely.
And so I know Troy's gonna take it over here and run through some numbers, but what I just wanna, for the committee, we will make sure to send out all of the information and some of the presentation. So you can think about it over the course of the next week as we're looking forward to some additional presentations. Again, with the caveat that it is a pilot, we're trying this out and we're gonna look how it applies. And certainly have future conversations too on what are, what would the committee like to see moving forward for recommendations. So that'll.
Before Troy gets started.
Troy, you might never
Troy
get
might not be
started.
getting started today.
I have a scheduling wise, I do have to fly out on the morning of the 21st. I know we have a meeting next Wednesday. I just want to make sure that if we do schedule this, it doesn't, if it looks like it's gonna flow into Thursday, it can't.
Shannon, how many interviewees do
We have a number of them, and so certainly we'll have to work to maybe expedite some of the presentations by, getting some materials in advance and putting them together to save us time in transitions. But currently, we do have a good amount of time blocked
We
off.
did 5 hours, didn't we?
Yeah,
Yeah,
So-
8:30 to 1:30.
I don't anticipate at this point that we will need to spill over to another date, but we will, right after this meeting, be taking a look at that and we will send out an update if we do need to figure out what could be some additional times, but we do have a large block of time scheduled.
And if we're doing that, if it's okay with the committee, there might be a possibility we could do like 2 hours in the morning, 2.5 in the afternoon, or would you guys be more like, let's just do the straight 5 hour?
I would rather do the straight 5 just because I'm getting ready to build a conference and I've got 62 different production meetings happening in the next 2 weeks. So that chunk of time was already carved out. So I'm hoping that we can stick to that window because otherwise it's gonna be a lot of Zoom for me and maybe not in person, whereas I can be in person for that 5 hours if need be.
And we could try to schedule in some breaks in between interviews, so there is that recovery.
I won't have anybody sit 5 hours straight.
No.
We'll
Okay.
certainly-
I think Troy, you finally get the floor.
Great.
Oh, the mouse is helpful, so sorry about that.
Sorry about my phone ringing.
We all got really good at this during the pandemic. Nice job, Troy. Nice job.
Oh, that nice big number.
Oh,
I already thought of it. Okay, maybe I'll give you just a quick update where we're at. It is kind of informative. So this is up to date as of the end of August. I won't go into all of the line by line details. Oh, that didn't freeze. Let's try that again. Okay, so revenues year to date, both interest and hotel motel taxes, just under 283,000. We'll note that this is, we are 2 months behind in our collections, so this is only a half a year's worth of tax that's been collected. So we're pretty well right on schedule. I mean, if you look at that, so that 262 is about 50%, just over 50%. So projection looks pretty close. In terms of expenditures, we do have, depending on the timing of the event, of course. Jumping down to the bottom, we have spent year to date $700 and almost $23,000. A large piece of that, or a big difference from your past, is the capital contribution to Washington Center. So we did make that payment. I will note that happened in September, not August, but I threw that in there just because it was a significant number. So looking at next year, so I did not change any of the projections for revenues from what you saw in your previous meeting. So we're still looking at that $560,000 total. A little bit of an increase here. You saw the 520,000 for this year. We'll probably revisit that one more time, but we're right there with the previous year, maybe a little bit under. So I think, the year-end projection is right at that 540,000. So we'll continue to watch that. Of course, we have 6 more months of revenue collection to occur.
Interest income is above the budget, but all signs are pointing towards lower interest rates next year. I mean, it's already built into the market. Yeah, we'll see. It could change any given moment. But, you know, at this point, all signs are pointing towards interest rates coming down next year. So, you know, the projection certainly accommodates that. This is the long list of what you just went through. The total requests are $858,044. We're about 300,000 under. We're over the revenue projection, so it's about 297,000 roughly. To give you an idea of what we have in terms of available B&E cash, this is the same number that you. Well, we have just over 1.1 million in cash. These are the commitments or the designations that the committee has placed on that, which leaves just over 126,000 in available cash. So I think I was just saying to Sadie this morning, decisions need to be made. So certainly don't have enough funding in terms of the tax revenues, in terms of what's available in cash. If you don't make any changes to those commitments, is under by about half of the. Again, about a 300,000 deficit in terms of the total request.
Okay, well. That is very interesting.
Troy, can you tell me again about the wayfinding signs? It seems like that's been in there a long time. And are we doing anything with it?
It has been a long time. It's been years. I mean, quite a. I don't think there's any immediate plans. I mean, clearly hasn't been a request. But I mean, it is a holding spot at this point, and the committee can certainly take a different direction with that.
I recall there was gonna be 2 phases. We complete both phases of wayfinding.
I think we did.
It
We
was down around Midtown and then up in
right,
the
we
northeast
divided
area.
up into 2 different regions
Okay.
or geographical areas. So I think, I mean, everything's been installed as far as what we originally planned.
Do we know if this is maybe a maintenance or if they get, heaven forbid, graffiti or any kind
I'll have
of?
to go back and look and find out. And it could be to accommodate future requests that
Right.
people will be on those signs and that work. But I'm not quite sure. So we'll have to go back and look what that placeholder was for.
So if we that's a small dent in what our shortfall is. So like we did with some of the CDBG funding, maybe we didn't get to fund everybody at their highest level that they were asking for. But we did get to get a lot of funding out there and help a lot of people. In this case, I have to point out that of the 848 or whatever the 8 number was, the 838 and some change, the city of Lacey represents 42.8% of those that asked. And so, I'm not, familiar with every department's budget, but it looks like, maybe some departments need to relook at their budgets and see if we can, get some help there too, in order to be able to, help and fund some more of this stuff. Now, I know that Spring Fun Fair, Cultural Celebration, all these things are events that our residents love these events, right? And there's no way I don't want to fund them. I just don't know if, golf carts are gonna make the list. So, and I'm not saying that as a, preemptive, hey, we're trying to make a decision here, because we're not. But I would like to see, these events from especially our new people, I won't say take precedence, but, get weighted and get funded. I don't want to sacrifice, somebody's efforts to bring something new to this community so that we can buy new golf carts or And I hate using the golf cart thing twice because I'm not against golf carts whatsoever. But we are running a fairly high percentage as a municipality in this situation.
And we're in a different position than we've been in other positions where we've had the reserves to pull from to cover all of the asks. So I guess to help me make a decision, because this is the first time that I've reached the opposite of what we've had in the past, is there from finance perspective, or other committee members, is there questions that we should be looking at besides the, the 44% of the city asks? Are there questions that we should keep in mind on, or how to take this piece of paper and shave it down? Is there thoughts that you have? So,
Maybe it's not a financial perspective. I mean, clearly we had it's a numbers
mhm.
issue that we have. I will say, in looking at, I brought down the screen, but we're scheduled to use $353,000 worth of reserves in the current year. We're definitely using 250,000. I mean, that was the capital one-time ask.
Right.
from the Center. So there may be a little more savings there too, but it's
not gonna
It's
still
tough.
fill that. It's like,
It's not.
worst case scenario, maybe a quarter, maybe a little bit more than a quarter or a half,
right.
or a quarter to a half, but
The committee is really tasked with, in terms of evaluation of the application, it really does come down to tourism and how it promotes or doesn't promote. So, there's some really good metrics in here.
And from greater than 50 miles is the standard per statute for lodging tax as well.
Mhm.
So whether it's a city project or a
so really look at
nonprofit or
those.
private project, you're looking at them all the same.
True.
And as what, how they're bringing folks into the area, experiencing the Lacey environment and putting that travel miles in to
Right.
hotel stays.
And in some cases, I'm seeing, from some of our applicants, significant increases, like over
Right.
100% in some cases. And I don't know, I guess we'll see how it shakes out, but
It's really tricky on those questions too. I mean, you've heard this, but it's how do you collect that unless it's a ticketed event? How do you collect that data? I mean, it's, we had X amount of people that came in to this event, but how do we know that that's outside the community? And some of the samples that we were reading in the applications, it's, we're collecting that data, or we know that we get but how do you know that you get that data? Like, how do we know that you're coming from Pierce County? You're coming, what is giving you that information? Because what I'm being shown in this document does not tell me how you're deriving that, except for, again, South Sound Block Party, where they actually had the zip codes because they got those from the hotel, I'm assuming.
Or credit card
Or the
purchases
credit
for
card
tickets.
purchases for tickets, which I know that's how the Washington Center collects data, is by addresses and tickets. But so it's really, I would really love to see how they're collecting that data. And I really wish we had the software in place to do the random samples of are you outside the area? Punch in your zip code, and then that way we can get a random sample. We can get a sampling of these, but we've talked about that for years in the perfect event world. So.
okay, well then, as we, get ready to adjourn, I guess, this next week, we really need to be looking at and thinking about, the numbers as they're presented, the increases, as they're presented, how are we going to, be fair and try to fund as much of this as we possibly can. And, get as many events. When we came out of COVID, I was just all happy and excited that we're gonna be, having events again. We're gonna, you get to go outside and so that was, and so now, it looks like we have, how does this number of asks compare with previous year? Are we getting more asks? Is 18 plus?
Seems like that is anecdotally from my 2 years experience, which I know coming out of COVID might not be the best, but it does seem like a high number
It's
of
high.
applications for events.
26.
26 is-
applications total.
And for events specifically,
Yeah.
18. so.
18.
Okay, so,
It is higher than normal.
which is great.
Right.
Here's what we need to do. Build another hotel. Okay.
Okay. good with that.
Okay,
What
that's your task.
298.
297,816.
Troy will send us this most up-to-date numbers and we'll make sure to send it out to the entire committee with the other documents we have here today, as well as having that information available also on our civic clerk site as well.
Awesome. And with that, if there's no objections, I will call this meeting adjourned. Perfect. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.